went, and just to see, maybe she might have said, I will marry him, maybe because she would want to forgive him and maybe begin healing. But no one cared about that. They just thought about themselves. Because some people be like, I mean, any family, and if you had to hear certain things like this, you'd want the person to be jailed. If anything, you might even want not to wish that person well, right? So that's the thing. But with them, their action clearly did not show that they were trying to support their sister. Their thing was for them to gain, something from it, because they benefited from that. They got this thing of saying, okay, they're strong men, and they did. Girl Nenecherry here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I hope you're gonna stay, share as to many people as you can, subscribe and hit the notification button so that when I upload a new video, you'll be among the first people that, see the video, because you'll be part of the MVP. And to those that are returnees, oh my goodness, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Dinah. And Dinah's story, it's quite, oh my goodness, it's hectic. Lack of good term, it's just hectic. It's something that, I mean, I can't even play around. So I wrote some few notes that I think we can look at. And with this message today, or maybe the talk about Dinah, it's all about loving the forgotten. Okay, so Dinah's story is told in Genesis chapter 34. Her birth is also mentioned in Genesis chapter 30, chapter 30, verse 21. She is also mentioned in Genesis chapter 46, verse 15. And the lessons that I see from her story is that thoughtless avengers often hurt the original victims a second time. And family members can be trampled in the rush for family honor. And with this, I'm sure some of us can relate. There's some people who just hold, and I mean, integrity is a great thing that every person should have, right? And try to uphold it, to be a man of principle, good reputation and dignity, all those things you need to have. And think about it, as a family you must have that, so that even when people be like, oh, who's that girl, and then when they say, oh, it's Nene, they'll be like, oh, she's coming from that family and that family. And when they're talking about that, it should be something that they are honored to even actually be part of, other than saying, oh, that family, they're all like that, and you know what I mean. So as far as I'm concerned, according to the story, Dinah was the only girl child in Jacob's home, right? And she lived among 10 older brothers and 2 younger brothers. And also we see how she grew up in a family rocked by struggle between 2 sisters married to the same man, and their names were Leah and Rachel. I can imagine how that is, because I'm trying to picture this, especially in this world, as to those actually. I don't know why I'm trying to be so quick, but especially to those, you know, those are not okay with polygamy, right? If I may put it this way. And to have somebody who's an outsider, a total stranger, trying to poke into your home, but now to come so close to being a sibling that you have to fight over a man. I wonder how that whole setup was like. And I mean, if it were done in this world, I mean, it's also being done, because I saw it in one of these TVs that was playing. But yeah, now Dinah's mother, who's Leah, knew that Jacob loved Rachel, but I can't also necessarily blame her for the fact that the father also had a role in this. But now, we don't know how the bitterness and jealous between these women affected the only girl child, and who's Dinah, right? And by the time she was a teenager, her family was living in Shechem, and a town north of Bethel and Jerusalem. Sorry about that, in the promised land. But apparently, we see that the family never paid so much attention to this girl. Even when you listen to the now sermons that we have, Dinah is not talked about, or even preached, or to draw lessons from that. And if it's done, it's very few people. Hence, this is why we're saying, let us love the forgotten. The people that we're saying we're loving the forgotten, we're not talking about the ones that are gone, like they're long dead and everything, but we're talking about the people that we see, but we don't see them. I don't know if it makes sense, right? Whereby we see them, but they do not play a significant role in your life. So we put them into a certain corner, and the only time when we get to see them, it's when, maybe we need to use them for something, or something happens to them. That's when we begin to acknowledge them. All right. So, like I said, apparently no one really paid much attention to Dina until she went, for a walk in town, and this guy Shechem noticed, Dina, and he eventually rapes her. And when the news comes to the family of Jacob, because now she's violated and shamed, and she found herself in the center of family crisis. And now in this, in out of all this midst of what, I don't know how to even explain it very well, but out of this chaotic and tragedy that had happened, we see this Shechem owns up and say, you know what, I would want to marry her. He planned to marry her, like telling his father, because the father was a ruler of that nation or town, if I may put it this way. So he says he wants to marry her, but Jacob and his son, they saw that they didn't see past anything other than knowing that their daughter was damaged. All right. And now in this instance, though we're not going to go deep on stress on how um Jacob lacked in his fatherly duties, but we see how he did not even get to like do anything about it. And so the sons took it upon themselves, and they now use the same Dinah who's going through hardship, right? They took her and made her to be part of the bet, so that they can get what they wanted. So they used Dinah as bet. All right. And this not only didn't it, or did it not respect disrespect, um I don't know how I can put it. Okay, let's go back. So Dina is violated, and I think I'm just shaken, because this thing, it's not something that you just talk about, like, we're just having a conversation, but it's something so deep, so real, that even in nowadays, and I know some of you may relate, you might even know somebody, right, that is going through this, or maybe it has even maybe happened to you, that sometimes you bottle up things because, it's not easy to talk about these things. But now, getting back to Dina's story, is that Dina is violated, and now let's talk about her past, that they do not even take notice of her up until something happens to her. And now when something happens to her, instead of them sheltering her, comforting her, showing her that, what, she's loved and should be taken care of. And I do not know if this is the way that they thought it would be done, but then also I want to look at it in this angle to say, okay, then this guy who has done this thing is like, okay, you know what, I will marry her. But then they don't even go back to consult her to find out in what, or like, what is she feeling at that moment, and just to see, maybe she might have said, you know what, I will marry him, maybe because she would want to forgive him and maybe begin healing. But no one cared about that. They just thought about themselves, because some people be like, I mean, any family, and if you had to hear certain things like this, you'd want the person to be jailed. If anything, you might even want not to wish that person well, right? So that's the thing. But with them, their action clearly did not show that they were trying to support their sister. Their thing was for them to gain, something from it, because they benefited from that. They got this thing of saying, okay, they're strong men, and they did the greatest massacre that could happen, where they killed all the men in that um, in that land. So now her story for me, just reminds us that the tragedies that occur when family members are careless with each other, someone ends up paying, paying up a high price. And I know, like I said earlier, you probably know somebody that is going through this. And for me, I know, and I can relate to this in a way. And when you are going through this, it's something that I'd want to encourage you, somebody that maybe that is watching, that remember several glimmers of hope. Okay, even when everyone else forgets, God doesn't, right? And when no one seems to care, God cares. When no one seems to notice, God sees. And when you feel alone, you are not. And one of the first lessons God will teach you as you depend on Him is that there are others who also care and are willing to help. Begin to speak to God today in prayer about your past. And even now that we're trying to acknowledge the forgotten, so many of us are living in the past because of the traumas that we might have gone through, not necessarily rape, but then maybe in the family setup there was segregation. Like there's this thing whereby there's some people who are most important, maybe because of they are well-to-do people now, so they see them as important people, and others they are less. And so many things, when you talk about maybe stepfathers, stepmothers, and I'm not trying to say they are all the same, but the stories that goes with that. So some people have these traumas that they have not healed from. And if you are not healed from these things, and if you continue to suppress these feelings, I mean that to whoever that you're going to come in contact with, it will not be well with them and yourself as well. So you need to find a place of healing. But the place of healing will only start when you talk to God about it. And I know it's easier said than done, but that's all that you have to do. Try to have a relationship with God. And to those that have experienced God, you know that it the burden becomes less each and every time when you have a talk with Him. And surround yourself with mentors. If it's not the people that you're familiar with, I mean, nowadays we have mentors, health cares that you can talk to about your situation. It could be counselors, it could be psychologists, it could be so many people that you can talk to, even in your church setup. And I know sometimes we are afraid to share our stories because maybe we are scared of the judgment that will be there. And sometimes I'll come to you in confidence, and then somebody will just go and blurt out everything that I shared. So sometimes we're scared of that, but I want to bring you to a sense of healing in a way that you need to talk to somebody. You need to talk to God first and ask Him to help you move past your past, actually. And then also learn to forgive, and then also heal. And what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to say, hey, when all these things happen, or whenever it happened, depending on the duration, I mean, everyone's healing is different. So I'm not trying to say, hey, get out of it. No, I'm trying, if you can cry, cry about it. If you can kick if you have to. But at the end of the day, you need to move on. And at the end of the day as well, you need to heal for your goodness and the people that you're going to surround yourself with. And why I'm saying this, think about it. As a woman going through so many things, and then I come into a relationship with this man whose background is so good that he doesn't even know about these things, and you, without sharing your past, but you're living with your traumas, that you're gonna be so toxic to this person, and it's something that you wouldn't want. And sometimes you'll be doing it unknowingly, but it's a high time that we learn to unlearn the narrative and be able to move on with what we can do. And then also aging to other people that are seeing these people from afar, or the people that we have boxed up and put into the corner, that let us begin to hear them. Let us begin to see them for who they are. Everyone is special at the end of the day. The things that has happened to them is not their it's not theirs to keep or to experience alone, but for you to help them. And I mean, we were all created for a reason, and one of those great commissions were to serve others, right? And then also, they don't need to go through all that on their own. So we need to be there to stand with them, to give them the push and show them that you care. It's high time that we remembered these people. It's high time we talked about stories like Dinah in a way that we must find a way or a solution on how we can heal, knowing that even the world nowadays is recognizing that there are mental issues that are going around. And more so though, if I may look at it, which is another topic for another day, is that the world is focusing on how to guard your mental health other than trying to acknowledge, to acknowledge or be able to learn how to acknowledge someone who's going through that, and also how to help the other person that is going through, and the other mental issues that we're talking about, mostly even the world that is talking about, it's a medical and scientific side of it. But with me, I would want to talk about spiritual mental health. There's some people who are struggling with spirituality, maybe of something that happened to them, or you know they do not just know God. So we need to help them in that sense. You are there who has a sound mind. Be able to reach out and show them the way. Yeah, it's quite hectic, it's quite daunting, it's quite overwhelming to actually talk about these things. And I'm no expert actually to talk about this thing, but I just wanted to share, looking at the story of Dinah, and that we can learn from that instead of us being naive and being careless with our family, even to our children. And when we talk about when we talk about these things, the kind of rape and everything, I want to bring the light to this guy that raped Dina. It could be, and this is just an assumption, right? It could be that this guy was not even taught on how he's supposed to live around women. He was not taught how he's supposed to live around people without knowing. I'm withholding for the fact that I do not know the exact story about this guy, right? And so many perpetrators that are there. Some are just perverts, and and some will use the excuses of because the way the woman is dressed. But think about those that are going and abusing children. You know, and if you look at it with Dina, she was just a teenager when that thing happened. But with this guy also, you see that yet when he even did this, he was like, you know what? Because I did this damage, then I'll marry this guy with this girl. But this calls now to all parents and male parents especially. And why I'm saying yeah, I'm calling male parents for the fact that we need to change the narrative of just saying, that because women, they're naturers, so they're the ones to have to bring their children. But also, men needs to be more involved, more than ever. This is the time that you need to involve yourself. Remember, the child that you're bringing, you're not bringing them for yourselves, not to just become the lawyers, the teachers, the nurses of the world, but they're going to live out there in the community. I was talking to one of the kids that I was teaching, their teenagers, and I was telling them, look at me now. I'm here. I know I might not be one of the most maybe wanted, especially with the kids or something, but I just love kids. But I would rather even being successful in a sense that whereby I can say, yes, I am successful. But the things that I was trying to tell them, that can you also just look at my story to say, look, I was once a teenager, right? And I grew up with my grandparents, but my grandparents are not here with me to show me that way, whereby, I used to call my grandmother the LNG White of my time, because every mistake she'll point it out and she'll tell it like it is. So I was like, they're not here to do that. Now it's my time to live according to what I've been told. And yes, I have a choice, especially that I'm far from them. I may do all the things that I want, you know. And also being older now, because I'm now having my own kids, I'll be like, you know what, I'm old enough to make my own choices and everything. But we need to learn as parents though, Now in the parent sense, we need to learn to teach our children that even when they choose, because they have choices at the end of the day, even when they choose to do wrong things, on your hand you'll be like, you know what, I did all that I could, but this child just chose to do the other things. And I know the world will start labeling and say, you see, it's most of the times when a child is wrong or they've gone wayward, they always point to the parents, but which is not even the case. But let us make sure that we teach our children what is right. And for our children that maybe a child is watching right now, is that I wouldn't really say that the parents are always right, but the parents are always experienced, in a sense that they've gone through what you've gone through, but then look at the path that they have taken. And this is the message that I've always related to the kids, because I think our children need more mentors, even like in our church, because I mean, and especially men, if I say it so, because you'd find that if we're in a club, let's say Pathfinder or Adventurers, Ambassadors, the youth itself, you'd find that they do not want to take that space of leading. Or maybe it's because maybe children could be sometimes daunting, but the thing is that our work is not about the daunting side of it, because it's not for us, but it's for the world, and the world that is yet to come, because we are supposed to be building Christ like characters that are worthy of the kingdom to come when Jesus comes. So I hope you've learned something, and let us comment, let us talk about this thing. If there's anything that I've left out, you can always add it in the comment. If there's anything that you've learned out of her story, you can always comment, so that we learn, because in this channel it's always uh, a moment of learning, right? So yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.